Saturday's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
With Bow and Declare on the inside, then Prince of Aaron Raymond, tough bench. It's Bow from Reality. Bow and Declare up on the inside. Bow and Declare, Prince of Aaron is lifting late with El Paradiso. Bow from Reality just in front. Bow and Declare kicks. Bow and Declare's won it for Australia. They're on top of the world. Beats Prince of Aaron, El Paradiso in a photo finish and Master of Reality.
Operation, gentrification, as we progress till there's nothing left.
It's the eve of the Melbourne Cup, and on weigh-in this week, a good component of our show is going to be around previewing tomorrow's race that stops two nations. Also, of course, we're going to be reviewing some of the weekend's action. We enjoyed racing from Pukekohe and Awapuni, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host in Michael Guerin to go through all of that. Great to have you with us, Michael.
Yeah, hi, Em. The pressure's on you because this time last year, if you don't know, Emily tipped the trifecta with 4 selections in the Melbourne Cup. I'd like to see you try and double up on that. It's not an easy thing to do, but we do have a very special Melbourne Cup component a little bit later on coming in the show after the domestic stuff. We're going to tell you where all the horses who won over the weekend are going. On the second half of the show, Andrew Forsman, who's part of the Cambridge team who trained the only New Zealand trained horse in the Cup. Also TJ Comerford, who's stable foreman for Aidan O'Brien. He's going to join us here on Weigh In to talk to you about the 2 favourites for the race. And Emily, last week we had a chance with Tara Hughes to go out and catch up with some of the people who bred the New Zealand horses who are going to take their place in the big one tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we got to go to some beautiful farms, and we'll have that in the later part of this show. Such an exciting representation of our Kiwi breds in the Melbourne Cup this year. Let's get you into the review part as we look back at Pukekohe and kick things off with their feature, which was, of course, the Karaka Classic, where Syracusa was successful.
Nasha Riva then came, watch this space, pin me down as a fair way back with Syracusa, and back with him also Lucas Steele as they turn and head in with Tiaki Kelly Byrne, homeward bound, 400 metres from home in the Haunui Farm Karaka Classic. It's Ronki the leader from Go Nicholas, Crafty Jess, now demonetisation coming after these. Lucas Steele is weaving its way through nearer the inside, out wide here's Syracusa with her lightweight joining in as well, across the track of the 150, Syracusa out wide from demonetisation, Lucas Steele and Cherry Lane. Syracusa and demonetisation's having another go, but Syracusa got there. Syracusa beat demonetisation. Third over was in behind those.
Well, it was a pretty gutsy win by Syracusa because the horse was wide and back and made a long sustained run. Perhaps just enjoyed that clear running throughout the race, Michael, and tell you what, demonetisation lost no admirers either in that one.
No, but she's done a good job for a horse who they thought a bit of last year. She actually went to the South Island to try and pick up some black type, and that's obviously the key with a mare who's that well bred. But she's got it now, obviously at listed level. Spoke to Sir Peter Vella, they're his famous colours, of course, tonight. He said, we don't have no set plans with her yet, but obviously you're looking for more black type, looking to go from listed up to a Group 3 or even something a bit higher. Really happy not only for them, of course, because they've got that which stays in the book for a long time. But Ashwin Gwindasamy, that's his first stakes win and a really big deal. He's a good young kid. He had a bad accident last year at Tarapa where he was out for a long time. He's third equal in the premiership with Matt Cameron, and he's really flying, Ashwin, and a lot of trainers now starting to take notice. His best in New Zealand is 36. That's last year in a truncated season where he did get that injury. He's going to go well past that. Still claiming, and he's a really valuable 2 kilos at the moment. He's a good, young, intelligent fella, so really happy for him, along with the team, of course, on Syracusa. Spoke to Sir Peter about Sapira. He said they're looking potentially at the breeders at Pukekohe, the thoroughbred breeders coming up there, and that could lead them into a Kalai Zuzu or potentially as a Beal for her, because the key for her obviously is to get even more important black type to get that Group 1. So Penkaro have some pretty decent horses around them. I think they won with Naval Fleet at Awapuni on Saturday as well.
Yeah, they sure did. We move on to race number 4 from Pukekohe. It's Melt's been a little bit of time since she last won, but back into the winner's enclosure at Pukekohe on Saturday.
trail, and back last of all is Royal Performer. Homeward bound they are. 400 metres to go. It's Princess Rihanna tackled by Weaponry. Melt coming after the pair of them. In behind these next as they head for home is Show of Roses, followed by She's All Mine, looking to warm up as well. Down to the 150, it's Princess Rihanna. Melt trying hard. Running on is New York Jazz, and behind the man She's All Mine, Princess Rihanna. Melt levels up on the outside, and She's All Mine late. Melt back in the winning groove today. Photos for second and third, not sure between She's All Mine or Princess.
Well, it was 2018 in the Northland Breeders' Stakes that Melt was last seen in the winner's enclosure. 4 of her 5 wins, they've been on a dead surface, Michael, and I think she just enjoys that cut out of the track, and good to see her back because she was so classy.
Yeah, she was. As a 3-year-old, she looked really special, and then, of course, she headed offshore, which you would do with a horse like her because not only is there so much money there, of course, but if you can win a major race over there, they're worth so much as a broodmare. We never saw the best of her in Australia, but that's not uncommon for horses from this part of the world. He's such a cunning trainer, Nigel Tiley. I mean, I know Lee's involved as well, but Nigel's just so good at getting horses right, particularly on their home track, but anywhere they go with those type of horses, you just look at them twice. You always think to yourself, you know, I could back a Nigel Tiley horse any day of the week. She would almost certainly, you would think, head to that same race we mentioned earlier for Sapira. That would just seem an absolute natural for her, 1,400 metres on her home track, the Thoroughbred Breeders out of Pukekohe. So, look, she's a horse, I think she has a lot of range. You would think there's not a Tiara Classic coming up in late April or early April might even be a potential for her for 1,600. And there's so many 1,200 Mears, Kalaizuzu type races in the middle there. So she's not going to be a hard horse to find races for, because the way she won there, I thought she looked like a group horse again. Princess Rihanna was really good. I thought she just blew out that last little bit, and She's All Mine's obviously coming back to it. So I think that's going to be a pretty strong form race. I think there's going to be horses leading out of those races who at least are going to be factors in better races heading forward. And
now, of course, with Melt, that confidence-giving win, perhaps she can go on and add a couple of more to her resume. Race number 1 on the card from Pukekohe, Spring Delight, was successful in this one over the 2,100 metres.
Corner now on the first, 500 metres to go as they thunder for home. And the pacemaker is Symbio, tackled by Spring Delight. Poker Queen's a length and a half away from Sentito. Out wider, Teen Titan. Now Stars out into the clear. Being called upon here by Cameron as they head down to the 250. Spring Delight made the lead. Symbio still there. Stars still a length and a half away. And then Teen Titan and Symbio. Spring Delight. Now Stars starting to get into his work. He'll have to get on his bike very quickly though, because Spring Delight held the advantage to the line. Spring Delight beat Stars third over was Symbio, and then close up.
Just thought that Spring Delight got the slip on the rest of the field, and she just had the momentum. She was in that rhythm and she was able to pull away from them. Stars I can't wait to see this horse over even more ground, because just looks like he's only getting going in the closing stages, and I wonder if the Baker Forsman team has perhaps some cups on the horizon with him.
You would think both of these horses could turn up in those good country cups and even in counties cups and even Waikato cups, because you know the second horse hit the line so well, and the winner obviously being a mare gets a little bit of weight allowance. So I think this is a bit of a rebuilding phase for Andrew Murray. They have the chosen one in tomorrow, of course, but they've also had some horses who, you know, the St. Emilions and horses who have come and gone out of the stable after great years of service. Yeah. So I think that these new blood horses coming through are really important. And over the last 2 or 3 years, those new horses coming into Counties Cups and Waikato Cups on those 53s, 54s have been really potent races like the City of Auckland Cup. I think they've got 2 here and probably a few more at home where they can position in those type of races. So yeah, I think you'll be seeing a bit more of those too. I think Stars maybe has that sort of City of Auckland Cup class about him. I think he's a pretty good horse.
Yeah, he certainly hit the line that way, and take nothing away from Spring Delight either. Let's head down to the Central Districts and continue on with our feature race profiles as we get you to the Fielding Gold Cup. Staying event, 2,100 metres, listed race, an open handicap.
Getting right up on the inside. Nymph is back in behind these as they're about to swing and go. And here Mohaka trying to slip them now. Lubea is out of the trailing position to come out and after Mohaka, who's still kicking here from Lubea. There's further further away then Nymph Monday out wide. Obsessive runs on. Mohaka taking on the middle distance today. Lubay is trying to knuckle down and get after it. Mohaka's hanging tough. Lubay is trying to have a last lunge. Mohaka and Lubay, they hit it. Mohaka for DGB gets there second over Lubay. Obsessive Nymph Monday. London Banker was back behind.
Well, first of all, a massive congratulations to Daryl Bradley, who secured his first 100th stakes win for him, and well done for that achievement. Certainly well enjoyed, and it just led them up, got the horse into a lovely rhythm, and from there it was all over, even though Lubay came in with a really strong run late.
Yeah, it opens up a whole world of options for her. I spoke to Guy Lowry about that tonight, because at 1400 to 1600, yes, there's lots of nice races, but once you get to 2000, 2100, obviously you can race in all those sort of support cups races. Guy was really honest about it, because she did race at 3 in the war step over 2000 metres. He said, I just gave her a really hard 3-year-old season. He said, I didn't miss her, and maybe that's why she didn't come back quite so good last season. They were getting ready for 2000 metres when the COVID situation developed, and therefore she had to go back to the paddock. He's looking now at putting her straight into the paddock for 2 weeks, so she's not going to head into those country cups sort of circuit now, but into the paddock, then goes to the Kalai Zuzu fresh up over the mile at Te Rapa, and then he's got an unusual aim, the Taupo Cup.
Okay.
The owners are from Taupo. The horse actually started its career in Taupo, had its first start there in a very strong race, and he said that's $50,000. So we want to go to the Kalai Zuzu, and we want to go to the Taupo Cup. She was only rating 72 there. She got 9 points, so she's only rating 81. So she's still going to be really easy to place in good races over the summer and maybe even into the autumn. So nice training performance. I thought Lubay, good to see her back to something like her best, because she was actually a kilo over in that race. But it might have been the difference.
Yeah, might have. Let's have a listen to what the beaten jockeys had to say in that listed race in from our Puni.
Yeah, very good run. You know, the winner didn't weaken, so I couldn't quite pick him up, but she tried hard.
Yeah, he went a really nice race. It was a little handier than what we expected out of the barriers, because he actually jumped today, so that was good. He finished off nicely, obviously went a little bit wide. Just didn't have anything pulling me into the race, so I had to sort of get going a little bit earlier and went round the entire field, and he still ran really well, so super effort.
He just pulled too hard throughout half of the race and just had nothing left at the end.
It's gone a really good race. It's just got a bit tired at the end, being the second run in a year.
Really good run by the old boy. Just hard when the others got 53, he's got 60. Just he couldn't really sprint with them, but he's such a beautiful old boy, and he stuck to his task well.
Yeah, it's been a big winter for him, 62 kilos a lot of the time, 60 kilos. I think he's definitely ready for the paddock, but he tried today.
Look, we had a nice run in transit, just didn't really finish it off. Probably rain would have helped her on the day, but not a bad run all the same.
It was a good run. He got into the line like expected, but just 2100 is just a bit short. I thought it put a bit of pressure on those leaders at the half mile and might be able to grind them out, but he's just an out 2 mile horse. He'll be right on for the couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it probably just needed that little bit of rain just to make the track a genuine dead track. Just a little bit uncomfortable in that track, yeah.
So the thoughts of the jockeys from the Fielding Gold Cup. We continue with our Puni theme. We get you to race number 3, the Red Craze Bowl, and successful here, Royden Burgesson and Timaya Tairoa.
Star of Bombay right in behind these, and then Jack Star, Just Fabulous. Cinerama on the outside of it is going to be London Express, 300 metres to go. Amy's Jewel in front, Cyber Attack, Just Fabulous is starting to put in now with the run. Ranged up, Star of Bombay is looking for an out. Just Fabulous goes up to Amy's Jewel, who's lifting again. Just Fabulous with the lightweight, Amy's Jewel on the outside, trying to come back then. Cyber Attack, but she was exactly that today, and Just Fabulous gets there. Amy's Jewel, Cyber Attack, don't know the rest. Then we've got Star of Bombay, Duplicity.
Well, had the ears pricked on the line and did it pretty comfortably, this horse, and was fresh after a long spell, hadn't raced since January, and paid good money and just won like pretty much a $2 shot, Michael.
Yeah, she's bred to be a good horse, because she's out of a mare called Fabulous, who was a really good horse in Melbourne. Just had no luck. She's now with Waikato Star, but nothing went right her whole career, and she could have easily won better races or even been, a black type horse. So look, I think she's a horse Royden's going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
And I think she's just arrived now. Really good training performance from him there, but you can see that she was a little bit weakish early, or maybe there was something not quite right with her. But I think she's a horse who's going to turn up in better races as well. So we're seeing horses who may not be the best horses in New Zealand in this segment, but I think we're seeing plenty of horses who are going to turn up in decent races in the next couple of months.
And she's related to some pretty good horses as well. Ice Bath, who placed in the Golden Eagle on Saturday, related to that horse. So Sacred Falls doing a good job, and I had it as my roughie in the race, so I can't believe it placed.
I thought Ice Bath was going to win the Golden Eagle.
So did I.
But I was at the horse who won Durban. We'll get to that later on though, because we have plenty of Australian racing after the break.
We sure do. Let's leave you with some action. It was a Trans-Tasman double for Daniel Narkley when his horses were successful at Pukekohe. Here's Arrivederci doing the job in New Zealand, and then Jump the Ditch, and you've got a pretty handy one in Aussie too.
Arrivederci took over at the 100 metres mark here and dashed away. Put 4 or 5 lengths on them for Ashwin Goindasamy. And Arrivederci's home. Second over will be She's a Lady. Third, Mai Tai Centauri. Fourth.
As they reach the 400 metres, Crosshaven now stoked up, led by a length and a half. Azar off its back. They were followed by In Danger, Horrifying, and down the outside, So Let's Toast. It's Crosshaven given its head at the 200, but Azar moves up boldly. It's Crosshaven and Azar, and they set two. Azar on the outside and Crosshaven, who won't give in the shadows. Azar and Crosshaven. Crosshaven kicks and wins. Crosshaven beat Azar. 3 lengths of Photo, Horrifying or In Danger.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Welcome back with us on Weigh-In. We get across the Tasman now to review Derby Day. It's always a super Saturday at Flemington, and this year didn't disappoint. Let's kick things off with the Victorian Derby, and just as you would expect, a Kiwi bred getting home in front.
300 metres takes Let's Caraca Deal. Johnny Get Angry the outside. It's Young Verta and Johnny Get Angry stride for stride. Then Let's Caraca Deal and Cherry Tortoni from the back. Johnny Get Angry, 100 metres to go, and Young Verta. Johnny Get Angry is pulling clear. Hit the shot late, but Johnny Get Angry for an outstanding sporting double for Dennis Pagan. Won it by a length. Second hit the shot from Young Verta, and they were followed by...
There's so many talking points with the Victorian Derby this year. Kiwi breds 4 of the first 5 home. First and a third for Tavistock, including the winning horse Johnny Get Angry, trained by a former AFL coach, Michael, who had his first runner only, I think it was 4 months ago, won by a 22-year-old apprentice, winning his first Group 1. It's just a magical, magical story.
It was a crazy story.
Yeah, I know.
Like Dennis Pagan training that horse to win the Derby would be a little bit like in 30 years' time if someone told you Scott Robertson trained the winner of the Derby. You'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. And he only started training, he said 4 months ago. He was knocking around with the Corsten boys out of Flemington, and then they said, well, we should take out your licence. And of course he owns the horse, $50,000 out of Karaka, so he gets the whole 1.2 apart from what Lachlan King gets for riding the horse. They tell me he's a wonderful guy, Dennis Pagan, and there is some similarities obviously between human endeavour in sporting fields and horses, and you speak to a lot of people who are good sports people or good trainers, and they've had some sporting experience, and he's obviously applied some of that, but you couldn't make that sort of stuff up. I felt sorry for Cambridge Stud afterwards. Poor old Tavistock. He was a horse who we all got used to having around, and he had so many good stayers, and to lose him, you sort of think, oh, that's a big loss, and then that happens and you go, wow, that really is a big loss for the industry here. So, yeah, a little bit bittersweet in that regard, but as a story, amazing story for Dennis Pagan, and it was a weird experience watching him come back at Flemington and there not being anybody there.
I know.
Makes you realise how lucky we are to have people.
Derby Day is normally the highest crowd participation day.
Well, it makes you realise how lucky we are to be going to Riccarton this Saturday and Addington next week and all those other places and have everybody. And Awapuni had a massive student crowd the other day, so it was an amazing story, but I was a little bit bittersweet about the whole thing. Tavistock and, of course, a crowdless Derby Day.
Yeah, I loved what Dennis said after the race about the jockey Lachlan King as well. He said, in my sporting career, I always backed youngsters and believed in them and knew that they could do the job. And I applied the same with racing, and I trusted that Lachlan King was the man who could do it. And I was reading actually that Casey and Michelle Dando, they sold the horse Bradbury Park at Karaka. And Casey Dando was a flatmate of Troy Corsten's back in the 90s, mid-90s. And so that's how that sort of relationship came about. And he said, I've got this lovely big rangy Tavistock stayer, and that's what Dennis Pagan was looking for, and Troy bought it, and the rest is history.
Well, taking away the fact the man trained 2 different teams to win the AFL, these days it just doesn't happen that an owner-trainer wins a major Group 1, and especially someone who owns the entire horse themselves. The guy's not even licensed to train for other people.
Yeah.
That's just remarkable that just doesn't happen. No. So it's a pretty incredible story. It's been an amazing year, and it's an incredible start. What was a very big day? Well, there wasn't a lot of New Zealand linkage to some of the other races, but there were plenty of class acts on board. I thought we saw a couple of really good horses, and I was happy for the Yulong people who won the mile there with Yulong Prince, because that's their first Group 1, and they are tipping a truckload of money into racing in Australia. So I think, look, you get pretty bored of that after a while if you don't get a Group 1, so I'm pretty actually glad they did that. Him down the outside there in the green colours. This is the Kentala mile, and look, they have tipped in a bunch of money.
Yeah, they have, and obviously a first Group 1 actually as well for Damien Lane and Chris Waller. They're combining for the first time for Group 1 success. And this horse, Yulong Prince, he hadn't actually won since Melbourne Cup Day last year, and he started his career in South Africa, I think. So he's done a bit of jet setting. I think he's come to Dubai as well, and now to Australia. So results and wins all round in the Kennedy Kantala.
Yeah, I'm not sure how strong the milers are in Australia at the moment. I think there's a bit of a gap there, and of course the Arcadia Queens of the world, who might be the better horses, have headed to races like the Cox Plate, and of course the Probabills and those sort of horses also headed there. So I think there was a nice race there for somebody to win, but gee, there's been some indifferent winners in that 1400 to 1600 bracket in Melbourne in particular in the last year or so, but good on them. They got a Group 1, and as I said, they are gigantic spenders in the market. And they also shop over here as well, so it's important.
I feel like there's a lot of rebuilding of some of those higher end races with the young stock coming through and establishing themselves. This time last year we were celebrating Melody Bell taking out the Empire Rose, and this year it went to Shout the Bar, who was successful in the Group 1.
Mystic Journey, Forbidden Love at the 200 metres. Shayu, Odium lifting the middle, and they were followed by Missile Mantra and Shout the Bar. It's Odium, Shout the Bar coming at Forbidden Love. Terrific go, Shout the Bar lifts and may have just won, but it's a photo. Shout the Bar, Odium possibly from Forbidden Love. Then we have Shayu prominent.
Some fabulous vision from the jockey cam there, and there was barely a whisker between the two of them, Odium and Shout the Bar, and I found a good Kiwi connection here. First Dam drinks all round. She's a Kiwi bred and comes from the same family as Satinka, Rangi Rangdu and She Wishes, so it's a wonderful family, and yeah, got to get a Kiwi connection in there somewhere, don't we? Always.
Yep, and look, it wouldn't be a big carnival that part of the world without Ollie riding a Group 1 somewhere along the line. It's just par for the course, to the point now where when he does ride one, you go, okay. It's actually his first Group 1 for Gay Waterhouse, and Gay Waterhouse / Adrian Bott, who's now training with us since Fiorente in the Melbourne Cup in 2014.
Yeah.
So it's funny, for two gigantic powerhouses of Australian racing, they very rarely combine. But they did on Saturday, got another Group 1 6 years after Fiorente.
And so we move on to the Coolmore Stud Stakes. It was a pretty easy race because your short-priced favourite did the winning, and that was September Run.
Over on the far side from Extra Time, swats that September Run, flying a water long way back with Ranting and our Playboy at the 300. It's Anders collared now by Wild Ruler in the middle. Wild Ruler swats that, and here's September Run letting down with Muntasira. September Run moves up and takes the lead at the clock tower, followed by Swats That, and they were followed by Wild Ruler. September Run driven out, and the filly is going to do it again down the straight. September Run wins. Photo second, Swats That or Wild Ruler, followed by Down.
When you did the form for this race last week, there was no question marks around September Run. She was proven up the straight. She had the winning form on the board and she displayed that at the top level, beating the boys. The rest of the field, they had question marks. There was Farnham with the hoof issue, Glenfiddich with the issue. There was a lot of question marks and you could just see she was a fit, well horse in peak form and she carried that through to the top level.
Yeah, and those colours we know really well from this part of the world too, because Hermitage Bloodstock obviously race a lot of horses with Scotty and Lance out of Matamata, so they're the Dragon Leap colours. So again, they're people who shop here as well, so we're happy to see them get some more money in the bin. Hell of a filly, for a filly to win the Coolmore. I mean, when you start talking about horses like her in Sunlight, they end up being worth a truckload of money.
Yep.
Like enormous money, if in fact they even end up for sale. I thought Wild Ruler was really good there.
Yeah.
Like he hit the leader. Anders just stopped so quickly. He sort of got left there by himself, and I'm not saying he would have won, but he had every right to just give up and sort of battle into third or fourth, but he actually really came back on the line. I thought he was really good. So, look, I think he's probably the horse to follow out of the race, but you're right, there's some horses there whose bubbles have just imploded. Anders, Farnham, I know Farnham, the Stallion Deer's already been done. I think it's Equus Farm, so there's enough love there for him that he's probably still paid for himself. But gee, it must be heart-wrenching when you've got a colt going to the Coolmore and things don't go well in.
And I always think at this time of year, you're sort of patching them through, aren't you? Thinking, oh, we've just got to keep going to that Group 1 just to see if we can. So now at the end of the spring, you can have a good break and you can come back in the autumn and you've got a fresh horse and you've eliminated all of those little issues.
You wouldn't be starting to Farnham just never came back again. You wouldn't be starting to Theta said, look, he's won a golden slipper. You can get away with that at stud like Vancouver, who didn't race virtually at all at 3, and just say, look, why bother?
Yeah.
Because if you come back and have a bad campaign on the other side into the autumn, it's pretty tricky stuff. And there's also some really good sprinters up at the higher level now that, you know, if you did say I want to go to a TJ Smith in the autumn, you're going to be up against a Nature Strip and a G-Tra and all those sort of horses. So, I wouldn't be starting to Farnham was a horse we next heard about in a stallion advertisement.
Yeah, such a shame when they go so young to stud. It wasn't just action on Derby Day. We can take you up to Rose Hill because we had a massive day there as well. $7.5 million Golden Eagle exclusively for the 4-year-olds, and it was competitive right to the line.
As they come around the turn at Ice Bath, starting to improve. Sierra Sue takes an inside run. Sierra Sue to join Riadini. Dawn Passage gets going the outside. Then came Funstar between them. Bottega trying to pick up from Flit Ice Bath. Brandenburg and Colette right down the outside. Sierra Sue on the rails. Down the middle of the track is Dawn Passage. And here comes Colette. Colette is winding up with a big run. Ice Bath going through the middle. Ice Bath and Colette. Ice Bath, Colette. They hit the line and Colette word out. Colette, I'd say, has just won the Golden Eagle from Ice Bath in a great finish.
It was hold your breath stuff on the line because these two horses, they pulled away from the field. They were just relishing those heavy track conditions. And it was also really significant because it was two young up and coming jockeys going head to head here in Tom Sherry and Kobe Jennings. And Kobe Jennings ended up getting the win for the powerhouse in Godolphin. She loves the wet track, but for Kobe, I know he said in an interview pre-race, this is my year's earnings. I could win in a couple of minutes. And that's exactly what he did, and you can see that elation all over his face.
And I think he must have been doing a rain dance last Thursday and Friday because that's what won her the race. And she's obviously a wonderful mare, but she's just a great heavy track horse. She was in the Oaks last year, and she's obviously won that where horses like Funstar just massively underperformed.
Yeah.
And they didn't handle it at all. We were saying on the show last week about the fact that Probabeel could have gone there and missed the Cox Plate, and as it's turned out, she would have hated the track too.
Yeah.
So whether by good luck or the fact that they were aiming for the right race, that they probably did the right thing by going to the Cox Plate regardless. But you Colette's one of those horses who in about 5 years' time you'll be reading a sales catalogue and you go, oh, there's something out of Colette here. Oh, it'll be a wet tracker.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible thing to say about a horse who won a $7.5 million race. And to be honest, it wasn't the highlight of the day for me at Rose Hill. The horse I got most excited about was G-Tra, because he's just a horse I'm starting to really love because he's almost an old-fashioned horse. He just turns up for every fight and he's just awfully good. And of course, he had that Kiwi connection. So here is G-Tra winning the Yes, Yes, Yes Stakes, which is sort of a consolation for the Everest. It's just a consolation worth $1 million.
Clear from G-Tra, who's starting to knuckle down to the task now. It's Aubrey on her taking the lead. Aubrey on her 2 lengths clear. G-Tra's running home powerfully. Aubrey on her 2 in front. G-Tra's cutting back the margin. It's Aubrey on her. G-Tra, it's going to get desperate, and G-Tra went home best. G-Tra nailed Aubrey on her to win it. In third position, I think, Imaging just in front of Eduardo.
Obviously there's a Group 1 next week in Victoria he could have gone to, but Peter Delaney's in the team, they've put the carrot there and we took it, and look, he's got that, and yeah, look, he was fantastic today. You know, to Gordon, but to Claire and her team, they've done a huge, fantastic job. You know, we're really confident coming into today. Even with the barrier drill, in some ways it was kind of not a bad thing in a way, and when the track played as well as it has been for a heavy track, yeah, really happy.
So it was great to see Guitra getting home in front. Not only, Michael, did he get $580,000 first prize for this win, but he also got a $750,000 bonus for having competed in the Everest. It's part of their Everest concept, the Yes, Yes, Yes stakes, and good to see the Kiwis doing the job. And just might not be the feature, but still a casual $1 million race is hard to ignore, isn't it?
Look, he's really won people over in Sydney, Jason Collett. Like, he works really hard at his craft, but he wasn't getting on the right horses for a long time, and sometimes he was just missing those Group 1s, and now he's come out and won this on the back of the Kosciuszko. So, look, once you start winning those races, you start becoming someone who people ring to try and win those races for them, and I just love this horse. I think he's one of the great stories. He's not as good as Classic Legend, but I think he's one of the great stories of...
He's really workmanlike, isn't he?
Exactly.
He just goes out and does his
job. And they brought him to
fuss.
Adelaide, which isn't sexy, and he'll go back to Adelaide now, and he'll probably turn up in a decent race there, then he'll head back to Victoria in the spring. But I think... we often talk about people's horses, and sometimes it's a bit of hyperbole, but I genuinely think he's probably the people's horse among the Australian horses at the moment, definitely among the sprinters anyway.
Yeah, for sure. As we head you off to a break here on Weigh In, we leave you with the Hotham Stakes, and successful in that was Ash Run, who gets an entry into the Melbourne Cup.
Ash Run's about to unleash, and Sound back to the inside. Brimham Rocks at the 200 with Sound and Ash Run. It's Brimham Rocks grabbed by Sound. Ash Run under the arches is still running on. Still Sound. Ash Run diving. Sound holding on. Ash Run comes at it, and Ash Run beats Sound. Ash Run has got up to beat Sound. Photo third. Future score Brimham Rocks. Cariff not far from those either.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Very Elegant and Anthony Van Dyke, it's all class. Very Elegant a neck in front, and the mare won it. Very Elegant beat Anthony Van Dyke, the chosen one, for Prince of Arran. Then came
It's one of the lead-ups to the Melbourne Cup, and the Caulfield Cup was taken out by a Kiwi bred in Very Elegant, and of course you had the chosen one in there as well. I got out and about during the week, and I caught up with some of the breeders with Kiwi breds in the Melbourne Cup to find out their thoughts around their treasured broodmares and progeny. There's been plenty of talk about the Europeans in the Melbourne Cup, but what about the Kiwi breds? We caught up with some of the breeders around New Zealand who've got representatives in this year's Melbourne Cup.
Here we've got Emily as Danex. She is our blue hen mare, the jewel of the Milan Park crown really. She's the dam of Ocean X, who will take her place on Tuesday in the Melbourne Cup. Fantastic old mare she's been for us. Apart from Ocean X, she's left 4 other individual stakes performers, including Miss Aotearoa that won the Gold Trail Stakes at Hastings on the first day of the carnival. So yeah, she's just been a great producer and great old mare for us.
How did Tony come to breed Ocean X?
Tony is obviously a massive supporter of the New Zealand breeding industry. He has multiple shares in stallions throughout New Zealand, one of which being Ocean Park. And that's basically how the mating came across.
Arapaho Miss Dam was sent out by Jerry Harvey to New Zealand to be bred here after he'd paid, I think, something like $650,000 for as a broodmare. And she'd had a few chances in Australia. She'd left a stakes winner, did a little engine that Danny O'Brien trained, and she came out in foaled all too hard at the time, and we sold that filly to Pat Carey. And she, I think, made $100,000 from memory, and then I thought the mating with Reliable Man looked really good on paper. Physically it was a good mating, and hence the resultant progeny was Miami Bound.
Well, obviously we stand his sire shocking, and you know, we breed some of our mares to all our stallions, and this particular mare, Buller Baby, she was a Capstad mare. Early indications were that shocking was going to click very well with Citrustum Line Blood, Zabeel Line Blood, so it was an obvious choice physically as well. She had some quite weak foals, so shocking being a very masculine, strong horse, we wanted to strengthen her up a bit, and you know, so the pedigree and the physical mix was very good, so that's why we went ahead with the mating.
Do you remember Ocean X as a young horse?
She was a tough weanling and a tough yearling. She was always a very athletic type of horse. She was taken up to the sales probably the year that Ocean Park wasn't as popular. We initially passed her in through the ring, and Mick Price and Luke Wilkinson came back after she'd been through the ring, and we settled on a price of, which seems very, very cheap now, of $70,000.
He was a little bit of a difficult horse in some ways. You know, he just had that bad habit of throwing his head and just not walking and not behaving as well as some of our other horses. But he went through the system here along with all the others, and you know, he was always a sound-looking horse. He was correct, and yeah, quite a well-balanced, athletic sort of a horse. But yeah, he was a little bit difficult at times.
Well, I think there's 6 confirmed in the Cup, maybe 7 with emergencies. New Zealand stayers, they're doing the job, aren't they?
They always do, and even with the influx of the European horses the last few years, it's just been a time-honoured tradition in New Zealand. The Melbourne Cup, it's the race now that stops 2 nations. We've always been well represented, not only by New Zealand bred horses, but probably not as much in the last few years, but New Zealand trained, ridden. So there's a lot of history steeped in the Melbourne Cup with New Zealand, and hopefully we can be part of that on Tuesday.
It's something that we've hung our mantle on from a number of years, about how good we breed our stayers here, and through various changes in the type of stallions that we've stood here, that hasn't always followed through in the last 2 or 3 decades, but I think quite comfortably we can say that we're getting back to where we used to be with those staying stallions here now, and hopefully that's going to be more of a frequent result for New Zealand to see that number of runners in those races.
It's a race that everybody wants to win, and you know, it's very important for the New Zealand industry that we have this representation, because you know, there's a lot of competition now from those European stayers, and we want the Australians, our own buyers, to buy our product with a view to developing towards the Melbourne Cup. So very important, but great to see, and not only that, I think there's 2 or 3 genuine New Zealand bred chances this year, and that's important as well.
Most importantly, a tip in the race.
Geez, I'd get fired if I didn't tip an Ocean X, the chosen one, 1-2, wouldn't I? They've got a bit. She's only carrying 51 kilos, Ocean X. Chosen one's only carrying 53.5, and we know he's going to stay the 2 miles, and she's been trained to the minute. That's the beauty of her winning the Andrew Ramsden and getting automatic qualification. She hasn't been chasing races to have to qualify and get a start, and Mick Price has just trained her down to the minute. Her run for 3rd in the Moonee Valley Cup on Saturday just sort of suggests she's just really peaking at the right time, and yeah, it'd be an amazing buzz to see her cross the line first.
Look, I'm not sure. Those European horses, we don't know these days. Now you look at that form and you don't know too much about it. It sounds like Tiger Moth's a pretty serious horse, and they've got the ability, those European horses, to come down and be able to run fresh up in those races and perform very well. So if it wasn't Miami bound, I'm picking something like Tiger Moth or one of those sort of horses, but let's hope that the Kiwis can kick a goal.
I've been talking Surprise Baby up for a long time. I talked him up last year as well, and I don't think anyone could say that he didn't run well, and he's actually a stronger horse this year. I mean, he ran second in a Group 2 mile first up at Moonee Valley. He was a little bit unlucky in his second start at Flemington. He just didn't get a run, but he ran on very well, and look, we know he'll stay the distance. Track conditions, I think he'd prefer on the firmer side. I'm not sure what the predictions are at this stage, but unless it's an absolute deluge, I'll be putting my money where my mouth is and backing him.
And I had so much fun out there at Milan Park in the paddock with all those little foals. There were some beautifully bred ones as well, a Justify and Autumn Sun. I was spoilt for choice, and a massive good luck to all the connections, Miami Bound, Surprise Baby, and of course Ocean X as well. Tony Ryder, Milan Park principal, he has shares in the Chosen One, and to tell us a little bit more about the Chosen One, Andrew Forsman is on the phone. And Andrew, hope we're not keeping you up too late tonight.
Well past my bedtime, Emily.
Tell us a little bit about this journey to the Melbourne Cup, because you can't get there, but obviously the press is still ringing and there's still the commitments of the Cup. But what's it been like for you, and how exciting is it to have a genuine live chance in the race that stops two nations?
It's great. I think it's not a typical Cup week build-up, you know, the parades and Melbourne, you know, being a buzz. So it's a bit strange in that respect, but look, we're just grateful that we're still, you know, able to take part in the race, and that racing is still happening, really. So really looking forward to it. I think the nerves will probably start to settle in later on tomorrow.
Yeah, I bet they will. Talk me through that Caulfield Cup. What did you make of the run in that race?
It was a really good effort, obviously. We expected him to run a good race from the good draw and just see him get his chance. I thought he was probably held up a little bit at the top of the straight, then had to come with a run, I thought, on slightly inferior ground to the two that beat him home. Having said that, they did cover a lot more ground than he did. So it was a very solid effort, beaten by two very smart horses, and it was just encouraging to see that we're on track and we'll be thereabouts.
Andrew, you got barrier 5. That gives them a chance to posse up close to the speed. What's your realistic expectations? Because obviously he was great in the Caulfield Cup, but there's a few more Europeans joining the fray tomorrow.
There is some handy ones at that too. It's a very tough-looking race when you go through their credentials and run through them. I think the positive, as well as the barrier draw, is, you know, a firm track tomorrow that might pull a few of those ones up. I don't know if they'll ever race on a track as hard as what it will be tomorrow, so that might play into our hands a little bit. And obviously the ability to race handier from a better draw also probably helps without doing too much work. I don't think, you know, they won't be swooping right down the outside. I think they might be a little bit more on pace as far as results are concerned, and if we can posse up in the first 7 or 8, that'd be ideal.
Mate, good luck with him tomorrow, of course, but also heading forward later in the week, you have Aegon in the 2000 Guineas, and you've been able to retain your Hawke's Bay Guineas winning rider, Leith Innes, with Not an Option coming out now, so that's one less thing to worry about heading to Riccarton.
Yeah, that worked out well. Obviously unfortunate for the connections of Not an Option, but it meant Leith being obviously the retained rider for Cambridge Stud, that he was available, and he came down and had a gallop on Aegon on Saturday morning and was happy with him. So, yeah, no, we couldn't be happier with how he's ticking over, and really looking forward to Saturday.
Mate, he's a lightly framed and lightly raced horse. Is he spot on for a 1600 around Riccarton, or is it a case that you've just got to go down there and try because you don't get many cracks at a 2000 Guineas?
No, I think he's spot on. He's as ready as we can have him. There won't be any excuses from our point of view, put it that way. It'll just be, you know, where he gets to in the run, where he draws. He is, I guess, his racing pattern lends itself to being a little bit vulnerable, as he's dictated to by the tempo of races. So that'll be a slight query in that if he just needs a little bit of luck at the right time. And as far as the horse is concerned, we couldn't be happier with him.
Andrew, tomorrow obviously for the Melbourne Cup, where are you going to be watching the big race, and how are you going to be enjoying all the excitement?
Well, I'll be at Ellerslie, so I haven't really picked my spot yet. I guess we'll just see how the day unfolds. Hopefully we've had a winner before the Cup rolls around, and maybe have a drink or two and just relax and enjoy the moment.
Well, I suppose you can't really do much else, can you? Because it's too late at that point. And what about the job that Alicia Legg's doing across the Tasman there? Because she's on her own, really, apart from a phone call or a FaceTime. There's not really a whole lot that you and Murray can do.
No, not at all. And obviously she's played a massive part in all of this. Had to go through 2 weeks of quarantine in Sydney, and you know, to put herself through all of that, be over there by herself in a pretty strange I guess lockdown Melbourne has not been easy for a young girl, but she has done a brilliant job, and you just couldn't be happier with how the whole preparation's gone. Really, he's quite a straightforward horse, and Alicia knows him very well. So, no, all gone to plan. Touch wood. We just got to get through one more day, one more run, and hopefully he gets his chance tomorrow.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get to bed, and I know a lot of New Zealand racing fans will be behind you and Murray tomorrow, hoping that the only Kiwi-trained horse can get home and take home the massive Melbourne Cup.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
It's a great story, isn't it? That Murray and Andrew have had such, Murray obviously before Andrew joined him, such a long, esteemed run in Victoria with so many horses. They could have won this race a few years ago with Mongolian Calm, but of course he had a problem not long before the race. Just talking about other New Zealand connections, Nick Bashara, spoke to him today. Him and Don Goodwin and the team with Very Elegant are heading to Ellerslie. They have 4 tables in the Cuvée, and Nick said, if we win, we're not sure what's going to happen because he's got horses that races the next day. And Mark Lupton, of course, has Etta James, and they're heading to Ellerslie too because he has Ewan racing at Ellerslie. So Ellerslie's going to have its own little epicentre of awesomeness for the Melbourne Cup. So good luck to everybody involved. Also to the connections of, or the breeders of Surprise Baby, Ocean X. It's
Miami Bound,
Miami
Etta
Bound,
James.
of course. There's so much in play for everybody. And of course, they pay back about $100-something thousand back to 12th. So that's almost as good as winning the Livermore type race. So it's a big deal. I mean, we all know for the punt it's a big deal, but it's a massive deal for the people involved.
We feel quite privileged now because we've got TJ Comerford on the phone, who's representative for Aidan O'Brien Racing, to talk us through some of the Europeans. Obviously, it's pretty hard for us over here. We don't get a lot of association with these horses. But TJ, great to have you on the phone and enlighten us as to these Europeans that you've brought over.
Yeah, there's plenty of Europeans this year. Obviously, you know some of them. You know Master Reality, who ran very well in the race last year. Who the last time he won the Queen's Plate at Down Royal, he won very easily. It's a listed race. He'll be tough to beat, I think. He looks magnificent and he seems to be training well. Of Joseph, we have Anthony Van Dyke and Tiger Moth, and you have Prince of Arran, and you have Willie Mullins' horse, Stratham Albion. So there's plenty of good horses there. Even the German horse that won the other day, he looks to be only getting going at the winning post the other day. So he's even going to be a danger. I mean, it's more than just our horses, and there's plenty of good Australian horses there as well. Horses that ran in the race last year. I mean, they're the ones that have proven that they get the trip and they handle the track, and they get the 2 miles. That's a big thing.
It sure is, and it looks to be a really competitive running of the race. Tell us though about Tiger Moth. We'll start with him. What can we learn about him? What can you tell us about him? He looks beautifully placed at the weight, the age group, all of those ticks, but how has he settled into Australian life?
Yeah, he's been very good. He's been training well. He's a lightweight. He's come here. He's in great form. He's probably in better form for being here. The only thing he's lacking is probably lacking a run. But I think he'd be okay. He should get the 2 miles, but that's on known ground as well. But look, Galileo can do that to horses. He can inject that into them as well. As well as the speed, which he has. And we had his brother called Coach House. He won over 5 furlongs for us. And second at Royal Ascot. Tiger Moth won the last day, 1.5 miles, Leopardstown, quick ground. Group 3, he absolutely bolted up. Champions Weekend. He just put it to bed. It was hands and heels. He wasn't hard on him at all. He won very impressive. And the run before that was on different type of ground. It was very slow ground, soft ground at the Curragh in the Group 1. He was second to Santiago in the Derby. Probably with the experience, probably got him beat. But that was a good Group 1. It's our Irish Derby. So he is a horse in form, and he has a nice weight. But he's got a bad draw. But I think he'll be okay. He'll do the best he can. So he's a decent 3-year-old. But how good is he going to be? We don't know. And he has to get the trip as well. But Kieran McAvoy will have studied his videos and his races and that, and he'll have seen him, and he'll work it out himself, and he'll have a chat with Aidan tomorrow, and they'll come to some plan on what they want to do.
TJ, we know how good Anthony Van Dyke is. Of course, we saw him win the Derby at Epsom last year, and he was so good under a big weight from a tough draw in the Caulfield Cup. Taking their weights away from each other, there's a 6 kilo swing there. How good a horse or how close to an Anthony Van Dyke class is Tiger Moth, TJ?
I really like, Anthony Van Dyke is a very classy horse. He looks very, very well. He came out of his race very well. He lost no weight. Weighed him on the Friday. He was the same weight on the Sunday. After his race, he's a very classy horse. He's an English Derby winner, you know. He's beaten Stradivarius on his last run in France. And his first run this year, he bet Stradivarius again when Anthony Van Dyke finished second in the Group 1 to Guineas, you know. So, that was a Coronation Cup at Newmarket, so he gets the 1.5 miles well. He more than likely will get the 2 miles, you know. He has to give away, but he's a very nice horse. He's had a run. I would actually say his best run was his Caulfield Cup run. I know he won an English Derby, but that Caulfield Cup run was a very good run, you know. He had a bad draw. The ground wasn't ideal for him. He wanted top of the ground. Tomorrow's the first time that he will get his ground right, which he wants. We've chanced him on soft ground in the past. It doesn't work. I know before the English Derby last year, he won a trial at Lingfield on soft ground, but that was okay. That's just his class gone through there in a listed race. But to be a Group 1 horse on the top level, he needs top of the ground. So he's going to get that tomorrow. He has to give weight away, but he's in great order. He's come out of the race in great order. Hugh Bowman rode him this morning, and he liked everything about him again, you know. So you sat on him now a couple of times, and obviously he sat on him in the race, but he's doing everything right, and he's in good shape. So there'll be no hard luck stories for him, you know.
TJ, one question for you, for all the viewers here in New Zealand who don't know these horses as well as you do. One answer. Who's your best chance of winning the Melbourne Cup tomorrow? Tiger Moth or Anthony Van Dyke?
I'll be totally honest. If you give me the other 22, I couldn't swap these two. It's just one of those years where you're bringing a Derby winner, but this is how it's gone now, that you have to bring nearly your best horse here to try and win it. But your best horse has to give that type of weight away. So it's taken to bring an English Derby winner to the Melbourne Cup to try and win it, and maybe a 3-year-old Derby winner, just an experienced Gambit at the other end of the handicap. So really, I don't want to pick, because I like the two of them, but I definitely wouldn't swap them for the other 22.
Well, TJ, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Great to have you on the phone, and we wish you and the Aidan O'Brien team the best of luck with your 2 contenders, and fingers crossed, you never know, hopefully you can Quinella the race.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So TJ Comerford, they're giving us a fantastic overview of their 2 runners, and we can just bring up the field for you actually and have a little look at all the contenders in the Melbourne Cup.
So what's your top pick? I mean, it's a top 4 option, but what's the one?
I've gone with the 12, Prince of Arran on top.
All from Barrier 1?
Yep.
Okay.
I like the draw for him. His lead-up's been as good as it has in previous years. He's proven time and time again he can do the job, and this year's very open, so why could he not do the job again? Yeah,
I've gone for Tiger Moth. I love any horse who maps at that sort of 52 kilo range. The 4 starts does bother me a bit, but Kieran McAvoy rang and asked for the ride. First time he's ever rung Aidan O'Brien in his life to ask for the ride. The Kiltarnan win on September the 12th was outstanding. So he's my pick in the race, but I think Master Reality is probably the best value. He was really good last year. So look, to everybody having a bet responsibly. Actually, big show tomorrow morning. You guys are kicking off, you and Aidan and Brendan. I think it's rolling through the whole day. Yeah, we've got a massive day on trackside tomorrow, so make sure that you tune in for that. We can bring you up some of the details there if you want to note them down and be a part of that Melbourne Cup preview show and into the whole day actually of racing. Starts at 10 a.m. I'm going to be hosting with Aidan Rodley and Brendan Popwell, who really be the brains behind the operation. You have a runner-by-runner preview, form analysis from some of the most prestigious form guides
insights in the world, Dominic Byrne and Adam Blenko. You've also got interviews with key players, a Facebook free bet giveaway, winners announced, and a TAB National Sweepstake winners announced as well on the show. You can have live racing, Ellerslie, Wingatui, Flemington, and of course that magnificent Melbourne Cup, race number 7 at Flemington at 5 p.m. So much to sink our teeth. I might as well not go home, just get a tent or just park up here for the night.
Ellerslie's got a beautiful meeting too. It's a really deep meeting, lots of really good support races around the Jardim, which is the main race there. Vadavar comes into this race with a third last time out on the Livermore. Spoke to Lauren Brennan about Barrier 1. She said, I'm not too concerned about it. What she is concerned about is the potential for a slowish speed. There's quite a few older stayers in this race, and I reckon the speed will be on. He might need to find a gap. He's got Opie on board, which will help. I do think, even though he's not a proven weight for age horse, I think Sheriff is the horse who stacks up well here. But here is Vadavar. It's the horse in the gold colours, sort of about 8th or 9th in the pack here, and he finishes on really strongly behind the Queen of the Turf and, of course, Untitled. So really good here. Emma, I thought really hard to beat. Just hope he's going to need to be on his game from Barrier 1.
Yeah, this was an incredible run, wasn't it? You thought the horse was going to run sort of midfield or tail back in the field, but it ends up running a really slashing third. So just going to be a case of what it can do moving on from there. Was it flattered by conditions, or is that going to be what we're going to see and prove really that it was up to the level?
I think Sheriff's really hard to beat in that race. I like one tomorrow. I think Gino Severini's really hard to beat there tomorrow. Gets a claim, gets Barrier 2. I think it'll jump and run. So to everybody having a bet on the Melbourne Cup, enjoy it. Hope your show goes great tomorrow. I'll be watching. It's going to be a lot of fun to see those experts. They don't need to be pretty expert to beat you after your trifecta last year.
I know. I don't expect a repeat of that for this year, that's for sure. But as we wrap up the show, just make sure you get involved with us here on Weigh In. If you've got any feedback or you want something discussed on the show, get involved in our social media channels, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week right here, same time, 8 p.m. on Monday. It's Weigh In.